Good morning, everyone. I should say good afternoon. It's 11:30 here. Happy Thursday. If I don't know you, my name is Heather, and we are here, gosh, a couple times a week. And so this is actually a combo class. What I mean by that is there's always going to be a couple of people from my coaching community here, and then we have some people from the free group too. So welcome to everyone. Um, Couple of things before we get started. So we will be live again in 2 weeks. Let's see, what date is that? Um, April, I think it's April 10th. We'll be live again. So, gosh, is it April 10th? Yes, and I will post some stuff about it. But we are live twice a month for the combo classes. So if you have any suggestions on something you would like to see being trained or taught, I can essentially do all of that. And so I do want to try to make these really great for you guys and motivating and inspiring, because the ultimate goal is for you to come into our coaching community, because I truly believe what we have there is not like we're going to find anywhere else. And I know Yolanda's a part of the community. She just joined, so she probably can't say too much, but I'll go over more of that later. But today is really, I'm going to make this a little bit different. Okay, so if you've been a part of my coaching, I'm sorry, my power hour sessions prior, I always have like a PowerPoint prepared. And I started to do that for this one, and I was like, you know what? Bottom line is, people don't really care very much about the PowerPoint, do they? I am just going to talk to you about my number two lead source, why it's that, and we're going to I'm not going to show you the exact thing because that's private to the coaching community, but I'm going to show you exactly what's going on with the flow chart, okay? So it's kind of more of a conversation. Hey, Doug, it's kind of more of a conversation today. I can answer questions. Maybe you have current deals going on, but I am going to show you why the flow chart is so awesome. And we'll go from there. Okay. So let's start off with direct mail marketing. If you were attending a couple weeks ago, my number one lead source is bankruptcies. Okay. 100% it has been bankruptcy. Bankruptcy and the way real estate is done, it's complicated. There's a lot of moving parts, and most agents don't understand that process, but I can teach you that. Okay. That was 2 weeks ago. Now, today, we're talking about my number two lead source. What is that? It is direct mail marketing. Plain and simple, super cheap. My stuff is very unique, and I've been sending out the same letter every single week since like 2010. Okay. Every single week, we pull the data. Every single week, we analyze the data. Every single week, my team prepares what is going out. And so every single week, they're seeing something. Okay. What are, but it's what we're including in that letter that's so powerful recently. Okay. It is a flow chart. So within the coaching community, we do a lot of calls, a lot of collaboration, and everyone across the country who's getting calls realizes that these families are in denial. They're in severe denial. Anyone else experience that? I don't know. Maybe it's just worse here in Illinois, but it is pretty bad. Why? I don't think the pandemic helped. I know it's been 5 years, but they're still getting bailed out. There's people that have FHA mortgages that have had two, three loan mods. That never happened prior to the pandemic. And I know this because I deal with it every single day. They can't afford these houses. So, something has to give. So this flow chart is essentially, giving them the reality in a kind way. We took a call live in the coaching community, which Yolanda, I don't know if you were on that call, but it was Tuesday. So powerful. We took a call live, and he had an FHA mortgage, and we walked through all of it. And it was like really, really great for everyone. Okay. Those are the types of things that I'm doing. And so let's talk about the flow chart. Before we get started, any questions for me or anything you'd like to see covered today? All righty. All right. Well, I'm going to share my screen. Um, So he called. So the client that called off of my flow chart marketing. Okay. And that's what I'm going to cover today. The flow chart is something that we created as a collaboration in the group at the end of last year. And we felt that this would be a great way to help families that are in that true denial. So a majority of us, I mean, it does take some time to set up the flow chart, and you'll see why. Most of us are using that flow chart now. Now, I have to admit, it took probably about a month until my phone started to ring consistently. And I am getting calls every single week now. Okay. Are they ready to go right now? No, but that's where you put them on a follow-up plan, right? So the guy that called on Tuesday called from the letter. I'm sorry, the flow chart. I do combined it with a letter. So just whenever I say that, it's like the same thing. Okay. Hey, Asia. Um, so the flow chart, he called off of that and he told us live that he has never seen something like this before and it was truly unique. And he felt that there was just something about it that made him call me. And so that's what we're trying to get. Okay. We want those homeowners to have that feeling to call us. It's not plain, it's not boring. They're calling us because they see the compassion and the empathy through these letters, through the flow charts. Hey, Asia, do you have any questions? So this is the combo class for Thursday. So there's some coaching members and then some members in the free group. So we're just kind of going over not the full flow chart, but if you have any questions, I can answer them.
Oh, no, I'm just here, just hanging out, just listening in.
I love it. Okay. We were talking about the class that happened on Tuesday. So, Doug, to answer your question, yes, it is a roadmap. Okay. It's going to be easy for these people to follow because you know what's happening? They're going to the internet getting bad advice. They're going to other real estate agents that are giving them bad advice, sometimes even attorneys. Or they're going to their friend or family and they're like, yeah, just let it go to foreclosure. Nope, nope, that is the worst possible thing you can do. And so it was like a 40-minute conversation we had with him, and it's essentially a roadmap. Yes, Doug. So it's very, very helpful, and there's no one else using it besides us. So I'm just going to kind of give you an overview. This is the actual flow chart, so you can kind of see a little bit of it. So what exactly is it? Well, they're opening it up, and it's saying, do you want to keep your property? What is everyone going to say? Yes. I don't think I've talked to one person in the last year that has said, I want to keep my property. But what do you do, Heather? Can you explain this to me? And I'm like, yep, I absolutely can. So this is unique. Why is it unique? Well, this is a yes and this is a no. So when it's no, okay, do you have a job? Because if you don't have a job, you're not going to be able to keep the property. No one's going to give you a loan mod if you don't have some sort of income. So if yes, they have a job, then here are the options. If it's no, then here are the options. And they can actually scan a QR code. They can either read about it or they can watch a video of you about it. So what is that doing? Well, that's putting a face with a name. So they're seeing Heather Keller, they're seeing Asia, they're seeing Yolanda, all these people in these videos, because they're going to then say, oh, okay, that's Heather. Great. I'm putting a face with a name. She actually knows what she's talking about. I do. And you can see the empathy and compassion through my videos, which is so, so important when you're dealing with this type of client, right? So the flow chart is super simple. When we decided to collaborate on this, I wrote it all for you guys. Why do I do that? Look, our mission is to help these families, and they really need a Heather Keller in their area. So this is what we did. Here's the details. We have an editable PDF of the flow chart. We also have um, a Canva template. So if you know me, I do not like Canva. But I have Canva here for all of you guys. I know that sounds crazy, right? I have a virtual designer who's literally designed everything for me for years. So I just have him do it. Okay. I send him what I need. It gets done overnight. But this is for all the Canva lovers, okay? If you decide you're like me and you don't like Canva, you could hire him if you wanted, okay? But these are all the options, depending on if they have income or if they don't, if they want to keep the property, if they don't, right? So there is two things. You're going to have to create the QR codes. You have to create the video. So there are going to be two things for each, okay? Because we want people to either scan to read or scan to watch. I'm just going to show you one of the documents. This is for the loan modification. So we want to keep this easy for them. We don't need to overcomplicate it, right? So I went in and I wrote this. So how does this help you? Well, you're going to just take this document and you're going to change all of my information to yours. And then you're going to save it as a PDF, put it in your Google Drive, take the link, create a QR code. That is the scan to read. You could go in and change all this, but the idea is to keep it like one page, bullet points, easy to read, simple, okay? Remember, these people's brains, they're just overwhelmed. There's a lot going on. We want to try to keep it as simple as possible. So here's a loan modification. So that, again, they would scan to read. Now, there is a document already created for loan mod. There's already a document created for bankruptcy. There's bankruptcy. That is why I encourage you to build relationships with bankruptcy attorneys. It goes hand in hand, okay? The client that called off of my flow chart last week has an auction date April 3rd. There's nothing we can do. So she's filing a bankruptcy. Okay, it stops the date temporarily. That's the key word. Lots of moving parts, but don't worry, we can help you through all of those moving parts, even if your bankruptcy attorney doesn't understand. It's okay. That's great because we can mold him into the Heather Keller way or the Doug Ranger way or. So great. So there's a document for each. Reinstatement, refinance, that's never going to be an option. I mean, I guess I shouldn't say never. Refinance is never going to be an option. These people whose credit is screwed, right? But a reinstatement, maybe if they got the money. But I rarely, rarely see that. But why did I put that in there? I put that in there because people actually really think that they can get a refinance. Not possible. So we explain that, okay? I use other in the flow chart because the reality here is a lot of times people do have to sell. But I don't want to put sell because it's like, oh, well, they don't really want to sell. So we're labeling it a different way. This document is slightly longer, but hey, here's the reality. I want them to know that in a kind, professional way. Like people don't realize, like once it goes to foreclosure, yeah, the bank is going to kick you out. Now that it's not winter anymore in Chicago, where I'm at, I don't know if you guys are in, I know Doug ain't in a cold climate. He's in California, so it may be different, but they do wait that out during the winter months because they don't want people to be on the streets, but the banks don't care about them. They don't. They're going to kick them out. So, it explains a little bit of that. Go to foreclosure? Okay. Why is that not a good option? So we talk about that just to show you another one. Dangers of foreclosure, a better approach. Okay. Again, obviously don't keep my information on there. Google does things a little weird. So you always want to make sure you download this into a Word and then edit it in Word and then save it in PDF. I don't know why Google does that. It drives me nuts, but deed in lieu. So did you guys know that a deed in lieu is not going to work if they have a second mortgage or they have other liens? Because those people are going to have to release. Why would they just release for nothing? They're not going to do that. First mortgage is in first lien position. They have all of the power. The other thing with a deed in lieu is it does report as a foreclosure. So they're going to have to leave the house sooner. So deed in lieu, I don't recommend, but it's there because it is an option. And I want people to understand all of their options so they can make the best informed decision for their families moving forward. It may not be sell with you. Like the guy that I spoke to, on Tuesday, he is now going in for his third FHA loan mod. Three. And the bank has told him, yeah, we could probably give you one. So now he's going to have three partial claims on the title of his property. It's insanity. But I think down the road, he's definitely going to have to sell. He's only owned this house for like 2 years and he's already had that many loan mods. So that says a lot, right? He is going to be on my follow-up list for probably a while. Okay, and then we have a sell your property. Now, the sell your property is in the part where it says, no, I don't want to keep my property. Okay, that's why I labeled it sell your property. The other option is essentially the same thing, except it's on the I want to keep my property side because you have to do it a certain way. Because again, every single person's going to tell you they want to keep the property. But after they go through these options and they either read them or they see the video of you explaining them, they're going to understand, yeah, okay, Heather knows her stuff. This is a great piece for me to understand. It's all right here. I do not have to go anywhere else to find this information. I might have to sell, right? So this gives it all really super simple for anyone that has the flow chart. Now, um, all the documents are here and they're linked. Okay. I even have my PDFs, which those are the ones that actually go to my flow chart. Um, and then this is a flow chart. So just for, so you can see, that's essentially what it looks like. Oops. And then there is a back page. Let's see if I can show you the back page. So there's two. I mean, I'm sorry, it's front and back. The back is really just going to have all of your information on it. And that's something that you're going to be able to edit inside of Canva. But it's really important for people to know that this is a guide as options. That really there's no everyone's marketing piece is boring. Do you know how I know that? Because I ask these homeowners to give me all the pieces that I can look at when I go to their house. Boring, black and white. It's all about them. It's not about, hey, I can come in and help you move on to the next chapter of your lives, right? So that's what makes it unique. You know, it's colorful. It just is different. Okay. This page you can essentially put on whatever you want, but we tend to like to use distressed property advocate because it does like, hey, we're homeowners, you know, we're an advocate for homeowners recovering and, you know, trying to start anew. Okay. Especially with the aftermath of, you know, bankruptcy and such. It's a season they're going through. And we want them to know that, hey, this season, it's only temporary, but you got to make sure you have the right professionals around you. And that's people that are inside of our community. So that's a flow chart. So right now everyone's like, okay, so what are you sending, Heather? Every single week I send our auction letter, which is included in our course, okay? It has that course actually is called Auction Date Lead Generation Blueprint. And that's exactly that. It is a blueprint on how you can get your phone ringing with auction leads. Why do we do auction leads? Well, pre-foreclosure leads know that they can sit and sit and sit. Auction, they have to do something like yesterday. They're at the very end of the process, whether it's judicial or non-judicial, they're at the end of the process. Their time is running out. So they're more likely to call you. It's more complicated, but there's ways to get those dates postponed. Okay. So we send the auction date letter. Now, inside of that blueprint, there's also a postcard you can use. There's also another letter that is very similar to the auction one, except it's more so for equity. So I think Doug has said before, like, hey, I'm in an area that actually still has a lot of equity. All right, that's great, but there's still probably a lot of homeowners that are behind on their mortgage, but they can sell with equity. We call those equity sales. So that is an equity letter that is geared more towards families that, hey, come work with me. We can pull the equity out, help you find a place to go. Okay. Don't go to foreclosure. And then, like I said, there's the postcard. There's also an option for a text campaign, which you have to be very, very careful with. But I know inside of the coaching community, she just posted about it. Sharon is texting expireds for short sales and she got a listing off of the text. Guess what it is? An FHA loan. Every single deal I'm talking to right now is FHA. Oh, Asia, you did comment. Cool. Um, and yes, we did do an FHA training, Asia. Anyways, so you just have to be really careful with the text campaigns, but we do go through and talk to you about those as well inside of that. And then the flow chart. The flow chart comes free with the purchase of any course, and it comes in the confirmation email. And that confirmation email is this. Oh, where did it go? Is this Google Drive with everything, the flowchart Google Drive. It is this link with everything, so you have access to all of it. Um, and that's what we're sending every single week. So how many do we send a week? This week was like 230. So I would say around 215 to 230 every single week. Last week I got so both of these two people today that I have to call that I have phone calls with are from the letters. And then I'm not taking any calls next week because we're on spring break. Actually, I do have a couple in here. Both of these are from the letters. Brandon was the guy that I spoke to on our live call Tuesday. So, 1, 2, 3, here's another three. So a lot of people I'm keeping in touch with, but the phone is ringing every week. A couple weeks ago, I got 4 calls. This week, I've only gotten one so far. But it just depends. It is ringing. So you're gonna get calls, but I would say give yourself like a month before you start getting calls from the lead source. All right, hold on. Yeah. So every single week, on Wednesdays is the day that my team pulls the data. We get all of our data from Property Radar, which you all know that. I've told you that before. And so we have our list set up in Property Radar. I do teach you inside of that auction course how to set up your auction date lead list. Okay, so it's your area. What counties do you want to target? Do you want to do so that I think it's 3 counties, 3 or 4 counties. I used to do like up to 9. But I do have some coaching members now in Chicagoland, and so I'm not marketing to the same people they are, right? So they pull every single Wednesday, and then we check to make sure they're not listed. And then she prepares the letters and they go out. So it's about that every single week. And does it cost money? Yeah, you can find, I just bought 2,000 envelopes on Amazon for like $100. Okay. The letters, you guys have access to my printing company with discounts. I just ordered more flow charts, 2,500. I think it was like $200. That will last, right? So do you have to spend money to make money? Yes, you do. And the stamps cost money. They're 73 cents, unless they've gone up 73 cents. But all you have to do, if you add it up at the end of the year, you should be closing a lot of deals from just this marketing. Again, it's a number 2 lead source, and it should by far outweigh the cost. Okay, so you're spending maybe a few $100s on stamps a month, depending on your area. You could start off smaller if you wanted, but you close one deal at 3.5% on a short sale because the banks will pay that. You're going to make up all that money and more. Okay. You should be closing at least one from just this lead source a month. All right. I know I was talking a lot. Let's answer any questions or any comments from anyone as far as the flow chart or what we're doing inside of the group. Can I show you more of the group? Do you have questions about any of that? I'm just reading through. So let's see here. FHA. It's very complicated. I do have a current FHA one, and they are paying they at least here they're paying a year's worth of the back owed HOAs. No fees or late fees or anything like that, but they will pay 1 year of the back owed HOA fees as long as they're meeting that net requirement of 88%. And they are, but then the buyer is going to have to make up the difference, which is probably a couple thousand. So you just have to get really creative when it comes to FHA, um, because in states that have high property taxes, which you would probably find this, Doug, in California, here in Illinois, the property taxes are outrageous. So just to give you an idea, I don't know what our property taxes are here yet because it's a brand new home, but we sold a property. It will be almost, it's like a year and a half ago, and it's like 3,500 square feet, and the taxes were like 12,000. Um, it's really ridiculous. Taxes probably here after they're assessed are probably going to be 20 grand a year, which is just crazy. So to meet that net with those high taxes, it's hard. So that's where you have to get creative with the FHA a little bit. Um, any comments or questions? All right, so it is $20 a month to join the coaching community. Highly recommend. Why? Because that's where you're going to be able to ask questions, exactly like what I just showed you. Sharon, Asia, everyone, Yolanda, they're all a part of the coaching community. It's a way to collaborate, as a way to see what others are asking. You can learn from that. You can post questions. There's 3 years worth of past trainings there. In the beginning of this year, we started bankruptcy training. That is what our Tuesday training is dedicated towards right now. That will probably go through June, and then we'll just do like live check-ins. Yeah, they are, Eric, for sure. And I think you're in Michigan, so Michigan's better than Illinois. And so 20 bucks a month. If you decide you don't like us, fine, you can leave. There's no long-term commitments, any of that. And then once you're a member of the coaching community, then you can purchase any course for 20% off with a discount code. And my courses really, they're nothing compared to what you're getting, and what you can actually do inside of your business if you want to take on this niche of distress sales. So I'll post the the whole store so you can get an idea. There's some littler stuff in there, like a boot camp and just some classes that I had last year that are 97 bucks. That does not include the flow chart, though. I want to make that clear. The flow chart would be included in any of the courses, which is top two books every distressed home seller needs. They're two books that I wrote that you have access to. You can edit in Canva. Pre-foreclosure leads, auction date leads, bankruptcy leads, and then building relationships with attorneys. I would love to have a conversation with you one-on-one of your area and see if auction or pre-foreclosure would be better. I'm hoping it's auction because it is really fabulous, but you can send the flow chart to pre-foreclosure families as well. That's the link to join for the membership. Any questions about any of that? I always say no question is silly or stupid. You just have to ask.
Heather,
Yes.
I've not interacted with you heretofore, except for the promotions you've been sending out. I bit on one of your lead gen requests, and I've been getting your emails. I first of all start out with a sense of incredulity that there's a whole lot of business in distress sales these days, given the amount of equity virtually everybody has. But I'm always willing to learn. I did a number of these back in 07 through 09. I was a CDPE graduate. And like you said, these people are not right in the head. They're distressed. They're distraught. It's mom sitting at the table in the kitchen crying over losing the home that her husband built, who's now deceased. And all these kind of scenarios. I get it. You have to just hold hands.
Yeah.
But in the state I'm in Maryland, throughout the process in the predatory practices, a lot of people were proposing to these distressed clients. Maryland outlawed the actual negotiation
Right.
by a realtor. It has to be done by an attorney. I don't know what your state requires. And I mean, I literally had to go and negotiate this with, three banks at a time and all that. And but you can't do that in Maryland unless you have a specific license with the state or you're an attorney. At this point, how do you guys work? What is your focus, and is that common in other parts of the country?
Okay, so we have someone else that is it's similar. So my question to you, Chris, is this license that you have to have, is it a real pain in the ass to
Yeah,
get?
it's a huge pain in the ass.
Okay.
Um,
So the way that I operate, and inside of our coaching community, I do encourage people to negotiate these on their own. But you don't have to. There's certainly other members that don't negotiate them. Okay. They just don't want to do it. And I'll tell you why I like to in a minute. But that's where like you could really build relationships. You already have the expertise from the era back in the day, right? Has things changed? Yeah, things have changed, but all those changes are inside of our group. So you try to find an attorney, maybe someone that you could mold into the Chris Highland way. That's my opinion. And then you get them to handle the negotiations of the short sale. So you still want to be in control, whether, like, I don't. So let me take a step back. I don't make the calls anymore. Okay. I
mm,
have a team that does that. But it took me a long time to educate them and help them and hold their hands on how and what to say. So that's where you would come in. So my Bonnie would be your attorney. And so you just have to set those expectations and mold them into your way. Like, hey, this is when we call the banks. It would still all be the same, except Chris Highland isn't negotiating it. Chris Highland's attorney is negotiating it. You can still get them done. It's just I would not pick an attorney, Chris, that is like, okay, they really have no time a day of doing it. You want to pick like a small firm. And this
yeah,
is
I worked with several. I work with several of them. I have good friends that actually set up separate business models next to the title company they worked for, a separate law firm just to do these.
well then
And
perfect.
well, it's just that's no longer commonplace given the lack of volume. Because back that at that time there were just a ton of them,
Yeah,
and then there's
so
actually other companies set up that did nothing but that. In Maryland, so those are also, I think it's some national clearinghouses that do it as well, but I found breaking them in is a nightmare. They don't know our area, our state, the
no,
laws, and it's unreliability. It's really a challenge.
I do not recommend, and some of you may think otherwise, but look, short sales, they're not hard if you have a good system in place.
Mm-hmm.
They're not, okay? I'm telling you that right now. Um, I've been doing these since 2007. If I didn't have a good system in place, I would have no hair left. Okay. But I do. I would not recommend at all going to one of those short sale negotiation companies. Okay. I said it. I did. Either negotiate it yourself or in Chris's situation, he has an attorney that can do it for them. Okay. Maybe, Chris, just putting it out there, we're very big on relationships with bankruptcy attorneys, small firms. So you go to a small firm bankruptcy attorney that is a small firm. Hey, Mr. Bankruptcy Attorney, I would like to work with you. I am sending out these letters every single week and I am getting calls, and these people need to file a bankruptcy. I want to refer it to you, and if it does turn out to be a short sale, let me help you come up with a system to also negotiate the short sale. So, are you an attorney? I can't remember if Maryland's an attorney state or not. Do you use attorneys to close deals?
Not necessarily. The title company, it's is common. You don't have to be an attorney to do the closing. But
Yeah, well, that's fine. So there's still ways for those attorneys to get paid regardless for the
the
bankruptcy, for doing,
closings and such.
yeah. So there's lots of ways to still make it work. You got to be, be collaborative with us and the support and stuff, you know what I mean? But yeah, doing the attorneys, it's totally fine. But you do want someone that is super close to you. So like all of my attorneys, I have their cell phones, I can text them, call them, whatever. That is the type of relationship that you need in order to make this process smooth.
Yeah, I understand because I've broken a couple attorneys and I had some bad experiences just because I knew enough about it before the regulations went into place. I knew how hard it was because of the constant badgering you had to do at the banks, particularly if you had more than one mortgage. And at the end of the day, they could, especially initially, they would just cut you off and foreclose anyway
Yeah,
after months of negotiation.
I don't think that the banks are as bad as what they used to
Oh,
be.
no, no, that's all changed. They saw the light.
Yeah.
They realized they were making like 13, 14% more on the short sales than they were on the foreclosures or deed and lose and all that. Yeah, but that was took them a long time to learn that. Um,
And
but
then I think a lot of people got away from oh, I did all these short sales and then I just stopped doing them. They've always been around. I mean, even now, like I'm still seeing short sales, okay? They're still out there. And but people are like, "Oh, I got all this equity." Well, okay. Well, when's the last time you made a mortgage payment? 5 years ago? You ain't got any equity anymore, right? So it could still be an equity sale. Like I just closed on one last Friday, and they hadn't made a payment in 3 years, and there was still they made like 20,000. Okay, that would have never happened pre-pandemic. But
no,
those situations are still out there, and you, as the expert, still need to come in and say, "Hey, this is still a complicated deal. It's still a distress situation." The numbers are never the numbers when you get the payoff. So there's still a lot of moving parts, even whether it's, if it is an equity sale. So anyways, I could literally go on and on about all that. Did
no,
I
I've
answer your
experienced it.
question?
I mean, I had to live with it too. And I understand how complicated they are, and I've probably forgotten a significant amount about it. But you know, in that period of time, I was managing an office where we were seeing deals fall through every week, and then we ended up in the 40% loss of value after 2 years. We went up 100% in 5 years, and then we went down 40% in two to a net
Yeah.
zero. From 2000 to 2009. So it really got to be heavily regulated in the state of Maryland. So, but just having the conversation intelligently with a client is 90% of it.
Yeah, I mean, I really, instead of like, I think a lot of agents, and Eric, I'll answer your question in a minute. If anyone else has any questions, please post. Um, I think a lot of agents, they get a call and they get super excited and they're just like, all right, let me make an appointment right away. Um, that's not what I do. I have a whole like 3 pages, and do we get to all the questions? No, but I really want to dive in to what is going on, why this happened, what is
Mm-hmm.
your plans before I go and make a listing appointment, drive wherever and waste my time. I hate wasting time. So you have to really dive in a lot deeper with the whole scenario before you just go in. Like I do teach like, hey, do all of this first. These are the questions that you need to ask and get through. So then like I knew yesterday I was going to the listing and they were going to sign. Like it's not like there's no competition, nothing. So if I know that they're going to be a huge pain or like the situation's wacky, I just simply say no. My heart wants to help everyone, but I also don't want to create some chaos in my life and a headache because then it trickles down and affects family and all that. Even saying no to certain people, I'm still making, 6 figures a year just from distress sales. And it has been for all these years. I think people are like, oh, there's nothing there. They're there. You just have to consistently market and get in front of those people every single week. Eric, to answer your Yeah, so Eric, I'll answer your question. So the flow chart does not come with the monthly membership. It's $20 a month to join the community. So why the heck would you do that? You have that because I guarantee your managing broker doesn't know how to answer short sale questions. You would come here for any of that. You'll be able to see any questions that are being asked, all the answers, 3 years worth of past trainings. I've done trainings on value disputes, IRS tax liens, FHA. Right now we're in bankruptcy, like 3 years. And there was a year that we're live 4 times a week because we were trying to like get as much information out there as possible. Plus access to any upcoming training. We always have special stuff coming on. There's documents in there, indemnity agreements, authorizations, everything you really need. So that's what that is. The flow chart comes in all of the course, any course that you get. So the 5 courses. Obviously, I would recommend the auction date and bankruptcy personally, because those are my #1 and #2 lead source. But the flow chart link to all of that stuff I just showed you comes in the confirmation email of whatever course you decide to get. And then Eric, I know your other question was after 3 years and no payments, wouldn't the lender take possession? So Eric is in Michigan. Michigan does their foreclosures a little bit different. Welcome to the state of Illinois. If my husband and I had not built so much here, we would have been out of here a long time ago. But unfortunately, we are stuck. So here in the state of Illinois, it has to go through the court process. So people know that they can abuse the system. Okay. So this particular situation, the actual homeowner committed suicide. And then they were in courts for like the sister kind of taking over. It was just a real big mess. And because it has to go through the court process here in the state of Illinois, things get delayed. They get lost. It isn't always the case. Like I think the guy that I spoke to a couple days ago, he hadn't made a payment for a year. Okay, so it's a year. It's not like that in Michigan. Okay, so in Michigan, I don't know. I know that you're not going to have as much pre-foreclosures because it goes through that process a lot quicker. You do not have to go through the courts in Michigan. Okay, so it's going to move to an auction date status a lot quicker. Probate attorneys are actually great to connect with. I don't have any probate attorneys. They're really kind of a pain to deal with. It there was not necessarily probate. She did go and get letters of office, so she could sign for everything. I don't really understand the whole probate stuff. It's just like way over my head. So when someone comes to me and they're like, yeah, this person passed away, then I have a specific questions like, hey, are there siblings? Was there a will? And then I go to my attorney and say, hey, here's a situation. How do I handle it? So every like situation is a little bit different. But another reason, Chris, to have that kind of attorney in your back pocket, is ideally a bankruptcy. You find maybe a newer bankruptcy attorney that is super motivated and wants to build his business. Okay, then hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm sending out letters every single week. When these people need to file, I'm gonna give them to you. You file, you stay on board through the whole process. Boom. It adds instant value and revenue to their firm. Great questions. Any other questions I can answer?
Heather, I just wanted to say hi. You mentioned me a couple of times. How you doing? I just wanted to say that I purchased the auction
Okay.
date program, and I'm going through the marketing, and that's what I needed. And I needed to be able to chill out with people who do what I do. I too am very seasoned in short sales. So, and
Okay.
you talk about FHA, that's all I do here in New Jersey is FHA. So I'm very much used to those. But I am going to say, my career has been with the short sales, but it's been more of the investors bringing the short sales to me. So
Okay.
I've even dove in a little bit more about the foreclosure consulting, role also. But I'm going to say that I've been stuck in building my business because I just couldn't put my head around all of the marketing that was needed. So when I got your emails, I'm like, oh gosh, this is exactly what I need just to put the marketing into play and just have the deals coming more consistently. I'm going to say the marketing, it really looks good. I'm working through it now and making the changes that need to be made, but I'm excited. I'm really, really
Awesome.
excited.
Yeah, New Jersey's always the top of the list for
Always.
foreclosures. So, it's really the consistency. Like I have everything that has got me to where I'm at today, and it can get you to the same spot, Yolanda, but I can't tell you what, like it tells you how to do everything step by step, but I
Mhm.
can't fly to New Jersey and wring your neck and be
Put
like,
it together.
Yolanda, you got to send your letters out every week.
Right.
You get that going and you're consistent every single week, I do promise you're going to get calls because I'm still doing the same thing everyone else is.
Right.
So as you're going through that, I'm very easy to get a hold of. Just remember we're on spring break next week, so there's no class. So that will give you some time to kind of, get caught up and do what you need to do. So awesome.
Absolutely. I'm excited.
Congrats. Any other questions? All righty. So just, pop in the group. I do post often in the free group. So we have emails going out. If you don't have the notifications on, turn them on. You can ask questions there too. I encourage that. You can also message me on Facebook. I know there's a couple of people that aren't in the coaching community and they're like, I really just need help on this deal. Can you help me? I can't say no, but I do recommend joining the community if that's something that you want to do because this isn't like the other coaches. I'm not like the other coaches. You can really learn a lot. Plus, everyone in the group is essentially on the same page and it's just really inviting and supportive. And that flow chart would not have happened if we didn't collaborate together as a team. So. I will stick around for a few more minutes. Otherwise, I hope everyone has a blessed week and I'll see you soon. Welcome, Eric.